having the talk, I'm using air quotes here, with your children as a Black parent means something different, I think, to, you know, other people you might think I mean, talking about sexual education. But when I talk about it as a parent, a Black person, and a parent to Black children, I am talking about educating them on racism and the burden that racism places on us as parents, and how unequal that is to, other parents. So let's talk about it. There is a different set of rules for me as a Black person, as a Black parent, of what I need to do to keep my children safe and, help them become fully functional adults. And, I was thinking, I think there's like a recent video came out of like a UFC fighter who has Black children. And he himself is, not a person of color. I think he's presenting as white. I'm not actually sure. I wasn't sure of his background. But, he was talking about how he doesn't need to talk to his children about racism. And it's, people were very, understandably upset by this. But I understood what he meant. And he's wrong. Let's not put that. But what he's doing, he is used to, as someone who's white or presents as white, has the luxury of not understanding that his wealth and his privilege does not extend to his children. He is a parent. He wants to love and protect his children as much as he can. That's, all parents want that. We want to never see them hurt, never imagine, their suffering. That's, of course, he wants that for children. That's, that's the love of a parent. But something that Black parents and parents to Black children need to realize is that all of that love, all of that desire, all of that protection that we want to give, making them ignorant to the fact that racism exists is a danger to them. And so as much as it is like, the hardest, horrible thing that you don't want to do to prepare them to be fully functioning adult people, which is, your job as a parent to help them survive without you in this world. That is part of the job, a very important part of the job. You need to have the talk with them. You need to tell them about racism. And that's something that's the burden that, white supremacy and the legacy of it has passed on to Black parents. And so what is completely and ridiculously unfair is that the burden, a problem that was not created by Black people, the burden of, educating our children about it falls to us, white children. And I talk about this all the time. I know fully grown people that have lived full lives who never contemplated racism, never had the talk about racism or white supremacy with their children, because that is the, result and legacy for them as white people, that they have that privilege, that they can remain isolated from it, even though it is a huge factor in their lives as well. But because their children are, not likely to get killed for wearing a hoodie, they don't need to have that conversation with them. They get to, continue to ignore the problem. So I understand that need, that desire to want to protect them, but I think that, having the talk about racism would be very, very, very beneficial, not just for Black children, but for white children as well. And so when, parents of white children, are saying that they're teaching their kids about white supremacy, about the history of racism in their country, to help them, eradicate it and to be better so that they can, dismantle this horrible legacy. Then people talk about how they hate themselves. Oh, this is terrible for the children. They're teaching them to hate white people. The truth, we don't get to rewrite history. Nobody does. And that is, again, coming from a position of white supremacy, that you think that you have the audacity to change facts. The fact is that the history of the world has been shaped by the enslavement of African people. That is a part of the world. And my children know about it for their survival, and white children need to know about it to understand their history, their place in it, and what they're going to choose to do to eradicate it. That history belongs to all of us, and we have each a different place in that history. But to be ignorant of it, to isolate yourself from it, to pretend that it is no longer relevant, is continues to perpetuate the evil and frankly, the function of what white supremacy is trying to do. You are part of the problem if you don't want to acknowledge and discuss and address the problem. So one of my friends at Golfer Girl, I'll tag her in this post, she sent over a video of, that really had an impact on me and inspired this episode, which was around these two Black children, these two Black girls, and they were getting shouted at, just horrible racist comments were being shouted at them, and they were coming to speak at a city, like a council meeting about an issue. And, it was absolutely disgusting and devastating. And one of the girls, she just left, and, which is good for her, just get away from that evil, toxic, stuff. And, to see them so broken and so upset. And, I know that, following that impact, it's a trauma. Racism is traumatizing. So that's going to stay with them for a very long time. And I know that their parents, they were there on the stage with them. And, one of the mothers of the daughters was embracing her and holding her. And, they're going to have a talk about this, after. They're going to have a conversation about what happened. They're going to be impacted by this. And, I was thinking about what are the non-Black parents in the room going to do? Even if their children weren't in the room, are they going to have a conversation? They're going to say, I would like to think that I would want to know, do my kids think these racist things as well? Is this what I'm teaching my kids, like, these children, these white children, they're horrible people. I'm like, my God, I would want to know that I'm raising my children not to be horrible people that intentionally try to shut someone down, quiet their voice, not want to hear something uncomfortable and, that makes me feel slightly bad. The fact that I would want to crush them just to make myself feel better, that is the definition of a terrible person. I'm sorry, there is no age limit to that. And, that is something that would require correction. Just if your kid was like a bully that was punching kids in the face, you wouldn't be like, you know what, just telling them to stop it would really hurt their feelings. So I don't want to do that, so I'd want to be, I want to know how many parents, the council members and stuff was like, are they impacted by this too? Did they go home and, have a conversation with their kids, no matter how old they are, if they have them, and just said like, yeah, something really messed up happened today at work. These children, these little babies were the subject of terrible racism, and it really woke me up to the fact that white supremacy and racism is still very much alive in people's hearts and minds. And we need to do something about this. We need to talk to this about this. So we need to do better as white people, because we created this problem and we need to fix it. Did people come and have that talk with their people, have that talk with their community? Because I don't think the only people that should have left that room deeply troubled and impacted were the Black families and those Black girls. Like, the excellence that is going to be spurred. Like, these were obviously very intelligent, kids that, were already willing to stand up there. And I believe that this is going to, make them grow and, fight for that problem. But again, I don't want that burden to be on those children. They're going to be excellent because, Black excellence, because they have that support, because they have their mothers, that they have their family and their community around them. Every Black person that saw that video, I know we're rallying and supporting those children. But I want that to extend beyond our community. I want other people to see this as not a problem for Black people. I want it to be a problem for everybody. Whenever a child is hurting, that is when we should be standing up as a community of human beings, to protect them and to, just to protect them. And I think that conversation, I hope that conversation, and again, when I talk about the equality of it, I think that everybody needs to be having that conversation about racism, anti-Black racism, the enslavement of Black people needs to be happening. The history needs to be understood. The legacy of it needs to be understood by all people, not just Black people. So I'll end by just saying that it's never too early or late to, educate your kids about racism. And it doesn't need to be, just with like the talk about sexual education. It needs to be age appropriate, obviously. There are many great resources and books. Go to your local library, do some research online, but even, kids that are, pre-kindergarten, it's really just about acceptance of differences. That's sort of how I, frame it as well. As they get older, they can learn a little bit more about, the history of, the country, and again, just about the differences between people, and not, I also don't like that colorblind language, just sort of seeing everybody the same. It's about acknowledging and celebrating differences and not ranking, something above the other. I think that's really the key piece to the education there. So yeah, I think, even as an adult, if you're not sure where to start, educate yourself. That's really, really, really the key. and making the world a better place, so that we can, challenge our biases, challenge these beliefs, see the barriers that exist. They are real. They're very, very much real. And do our part to remove them and, really embrace inclusion and equity across the world. So, have that talk with your family, your children, if you have them, and with yourself, and understand the impact and legacy of white supremacy and the enslavement of Black people. And, just, really start to think about how that fits into the world and what you can do in many little and big ways to eradicate it, because that's where we need to be moving. As always, thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next time.